This is a story about a woman named Ngozi. It is not a story about a lucky investment or a brilliant business idea. It is a story about something harder and rarer than either of those things. The decision to build, quietly and patiently, when every circumstance said it was not possible. If you have ever felt like your situation makes wealth building impossible, this one is for you. Ngozi's husband died in 2009. He was 44, she was 41. They had 3 children. The youngest was 8, the oldest was 16. He had been the primary earner, a mid-level civil servant in Enugu State. Decent salary, steady work, a good man. But like many Nigerian men of his generation, he had never considered that he might not outlive his children's school years. There was no will. There was no life insurance, there was no investment portfolio. What he left behind was a small rented flat, a modest amount of savings in a bank account, a beat-up Sienna bus used for private hire work on weekends, and 3 children who needed school fees, food, rent, and a future. The bank balance, once final bills were settled and family obligations were met in the weeks after the burial, came to just over 400,000 naira. 400,000 naira. 3 children, no job. When Ngozi told me this story, she told it plainly, without drama, with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who had processed it long ago. She said the most striking thing about those first months was what everyone expected her to do. Her late husband's family expected her to return to her own family in Imo State and leave the children in their care. Several people told her the money would not last 6 months and she should not pretend otherwise. One well-meaning aunt advised her to find another husband as quickly as was decent. Nobody, she said, suggested she should think about how to grow what little she had. The assumption from every direction was that 400,000 naira and a widow with 3 children was a situation of certain gradual decline. Ngozi had a different idea. She kept the Sienna. This was not obvious. Several family members advised her to sell it and use the cash for immediate needs. A car you cannot drive is a liability, they said. Ngozi could not drive, but she knew someone who could, a younger man from her church who had been driving taxis and struggling to get steady work because he had no vehicle of his own. She struck a deal. He would drive the Sienna full-time, he would keep 40% of everything he earned, she would receive 60%. The boss generated between 25,000 and 40,000 naira in monthly net income for her. Not life-changing, but it was income that required none of her time and covered rent and basic food. This was Ngozi's first lesson in assets, though she did not use that word at the time. She had turned a vehicle into a machine that made money while she slept. With the immediate pressure of rent and feeding somewhat cushioned by the Sienna income, Ngozi turned her attention to the 400,000 naira. She did not spend it. She did not put it in a regular savings account. In 2009, a neighbor who worked at a bank told her about fixed deposit accounts, instruments that paid significantly higher interest than standard savings accounts, with a lock-in period. She put 300,000 naira into a 12-month fixed deposit. The remaining 100,000 she kept liquid for emergencies. At the end of 12 months, her 300,000 had grown to approximately 345,000 naira. She rolled it over. Then again, she never touched the principal. While the fixed deposit quietly compounded, Ngozi had been doing something else. Ngozi had always known how to cook, not just as a domestic skill. She cooked at a level that made people stop and ask questions. After the burial period, she began making small quantities of processed foods, ground crayfish, ground pepper blends, ogiri, egusi, and selling them through her church and neighborhood. She started with a capital of less than 5,000 naira. Within 6 months, the small food processing trade was generating 15,000 to 20,000 naira in monthly net income. Not large, but consistent. She did not spend this money on lifestyle. She added it to the emergency cash reserve, and once that reserve reached 150,000 naira, which she decided was her floor, every additional naira from the trade went back into a new fixed deposit she opened separately. 2 income streams, both modest, both preserved and reinvested with discipline that from the outside looked like stubbornness or denial. In 2013, 4 years after her husband's death, Ngozi's accumulated fixed deposit savings had grown to approximately 800,000 naira. Her food processing business had also grown, now with 2 young women from her area helping her process and sell. A man in her church was selling a plot of land in a developing area outside Enugu. The price was 750,000 naira. It was not prime land. It was not in a sought-after location. It was in an area where houses were beginning to appear, where infrastructure was slowly arriving, but where nobody was yet paying premium prices. Ngozi bought it. She paid in full. She held the document in a metal box under her bed. She told almost no one. Between 2013 and 2023, 10 years, several things happened simultaneously. The Sienna was eventually sold and replaced with a newer bus using profits from the transport income. By 2018, Ngozi owned 2 vehicles in the same arrangement, both driven by trusted young men from her community. Monthly transport income had grown to over 80,000 naira monthly. The food processing business had formalized. Ngozi had registered it, found a wholesale buyer for her pepper and crayfish blends, and was running a genuine small operation. Monthly net income from the business had grown to over 150,000 naira by 2020. The fixed deposit savings habit had never stopped. Every year, she rolled over her principal and added to it from business and transport income. By 2021, her savings and low-risk investment portfolio was worth over 4 million naira. And the land outside Enugu where Ngozi bought her plot in 2013 for 750,000 naira, by 2023 had become a desirable residential corridor. Proper roads had arrived, estate developers had moved in, neighbors were building. A developer approached Ngozi in 2022 and offered her 9.5 million naira for the plot. She negotiated to 11 million naira and accepted. Let us pause and look at what Ngozi built from 400,000 naira and a vehicle in 10 years. 2-vehicle transport business generating over 80,000 naira monthly, food processing business generating over 150,000 naira monthly, a savings and investment portfolio worth over 4 million naira, land sold for 11 million naira. Total net worth accumulated from a starting point of 400,000 naira in 14 years by a widow with no formal financial education, no business degree, and no family support. Approximately 18 to 20 million naira in assets and savings from 400,000 naira. When I sat with Ngozi and asked her to explain how she did it, she looked almost confused by the question, as if the answer was obvious. She said, "I just never let money rest. Every time money came in, it had a job to go to. If it wasn't going to build something, it went somewhere it would grow on its own. I never spent what I could save. I never saved what I could invest." This was not a formal financial framework. It was a philosophy forged for necessity and stubbornness. But broken down, it maps precisely onto principles that every financial educator in the world teaches. Principle 1. Preserve capital. She never spent the 300,000 naira. She grew it. Principle 2. Create income-generating assets. The Sienna was not a sentimental decision. It was an economic one. She turned an idle asset into a monthly income stream. Principle 3. Reinvest surplus. Every naira above her minimum needs went back into the next layer of building. There was no lifestyle inflation, not for years. Principle 4. Think long. The land she bought in 2013 was not impressive in 2013. She was not buying what it was. She was buying what it would become. Principle 5. Protect what you build. Documents kept, agreements clear, no informal arrangements without written understanding. There is one more thing Ngozi said that stayed with me. She said, the hardest part was not the money. The hardest part was deciding in the middle of grief, in the middle of fear, in the middle of everyone telling me the story was over, that the story was not over. That decision, the decision to keep building when every circumstance suggests it is not possible, is not a financial principle. It is something deeper. It is the belief that your situation is not your destination. Ngozi is 56 now. Her youngest child is a working professional. Her oldest has a family of her own. None of them carries financial stress as an inheritance from her father's early death. That's what she built. Not just money. A different story for her children than the one the circumstances were writing.
The investment that made all of it possible was not the land, or the fixed deposits, or the bosses. It was the decision, made in grief and without certainty, to build anyway. That investment is available to everyone. If this story changed how you think about building from nothing, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment. What is the hardest thing you've built from?